Kale crouched atop the crumbling metal beam, his boots pressed against the icy surface as he scanned the horizon. Smoke rose from the ruined city, twisted towers casting jagged shadows in the dim light. He had learned to move quietly, to vanish in plain sight, a skill honed over years of surviving a world that had no place for orphans. The streets of his childhood were gone, replaced by the chaos of a colony at war, but the lessons of survival remained in his veins, sharp as the knives he carried. Every sound mattered. The hiss of distant machinery, the clatter of debris shifting in the wind, the faint hum of alien drones patrolling the area. Kale had learned to listen to the world around him in a way few humans did. He could sense danger before it arrived, anticipate moves before they were made. It was not magic or luck, it was instinct, sharpened through hardship. The job tonight was dangerous, almost suicidal. He had been hired to extract critical intelligence from a fortress controlled by the Krelith, a species known for their ruthless efficiency and unmatched technology. The pay was enormous, enough to keep him fed, armed, and free for months. But money was not Kale's only motivation. He thrived on the challenge, the rush of doing what others could not. Slipping down from the beam, Kale moved like a shadow across the rooftop. His long coat, tattered from years of use, flared slightly as he ran. In the dim light, he could see the outline of guards below, their armor glinting in the artificial glow of searchlights. Timing was everything. A misstep could cost him his life, or worse, allow the Krelith to capture him and sell him to the highest bidder. Kale paused, crouching behind an angular wall of debris. Memories flickered unbidden in his mind. Years ago, before he became a mercenary, before the colony fell to ruin, he had been a boy who still believed in heroes and hope. He remembered a day when a bridge collapsed during a diplomatic mission. A young girl had been trapped, hanging from the crumbling edge. Without thinking, Kale had leapt forward, grabbing her and pulling her to safety. The image was vivid, her terrified eyes, the way she had clung to him, her whispered thanks. He had never seen her again. Now she was no longer a girl. Kale had heard rumors that the child he once saved had become Queen Alara, a powerful leader commanding fleets and armies, her empire spanning dozens of star systems. He shook the thought away. He had no time for nostalgia. Tonight, survival and the mission mattered. Yet somewhere deep in the back of his mind, a strange sense of fate lingered. Slipping past the patrols with practiced ease, Kale reached the outer wall of the fortress. His boots made no sound on the smooth alloy surface. He could see the pattern of surveillance drones moving in a precise rhythm. Timing his movements to the pattern, he dropped to the ground and melted into the shadows. The fortress gates loomed ahead, massive and reinforced with alien alloys that resisted conventional explosives. Kale didn't need explosives. He had other tools born from years of necessity and creativity. He retrieved a small device from his belt, pressing it against the gate's control panel. Sparks flared as he manipulated the circuitry, bypassing the security protocols. The gate hissed and slid open, and Kale slipped inside, vanishing into the darkness. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of machinery and oil. The corridors twisted like a labyrinth, alien markings etched into the walls. Kale moved silently, every sense alert. The mission was simple in theory: retrieve the intelligence, leave without being seen. Simple in theory, deadly in practice. He found the server room at the heart of the fortress. Alien guards patrolled in pairs, but Kale had anticipated their rotations. Timing his movements carefully, he dropped from the ceiling above, landing silently behind one guard. A quick strike, precise and silent, and the man was unconscious. The second guard turned, alarm flashing in his eyes, but Kale was faster. The hum of his blade slicing through the air was the only sound before the second guard collapsed. The server tower stood before him, lights blinking in a hypnotic pattern. Kale approached and connected his device, downloading the encrypted files. The information was critical: plans, coordinates, and intelligence that could shift the balance of power in the outer colonies. As the download progressed, Kale's mind wandered briefly again. How strange it would be, he thought, if the girl he once saved were the one whose empire might one day benefit from this information. But he didn't allow himself the luxury of hope or sentiment. Hope was dangerous. Sentiment could be fatal. The download completed, and Kale retraced his steps. The fortress had not yet noticed the intruder, but the alert systems could activate at any moment. He slipped past the last patrol, feeling the tension coiling in his stomach like a spring ready to snap. He emerged onto the roof and looked at the city sprawling below. Smoke rose from several fires, the sound of distant gunfire echoing in the night. He paused for a moment, taking in the chaos he had long called home. Then movement caught his eye. A small squad of Krellith soldiers had noticed something. Their heads turned in his direction. Kale didn't hesitate. He jumped across the gap between buildings, landing in a crouch. The squad opened fire, plasma bolts slicing the air around him. He rolled, firing back with a compact pulse weapon. The humans, or what remained of them, could never match the aliens in raw firepower, but humans had something no alien army could replicate: unpredictability. Kale used every trick he knew, moving in ways that the Krellith could not anticipate. He dodged, weaved, and struck, leaving the soldiers stunned and disoriented. By the time he reached the edge of the city, he was exhausted but alive. The intel secure, he disappeared into the night, vanishing into the network of abandoned streets and ruined buildings. The city swallowed him, shadows masking his presence as he melted away like smoke. Later, in the quiet of a safe house far from the city, Kale examined the files. Coordinates, ship manifests, battle plans, valuable information for anyone with the skill to use it. Kale's reputation as a mercenary had grown, but tonight it had taken a new turn. Whoever had hired him would be pleased, and the galaxy would begin to whisper his name in fear and respect. But as he prepared for the next mission, a quiet thought lingered. Queen Alara, the girl he had saved. Somewhere out there, she ruled an empire, her life shaped in ways he could not imagine. And somewhere in the whispering networks of spies and informants, his name was already traveling, carried to ears that might recognize it, ears that might remember a small boy who had once acted with courage when no one else could. Kale leaned back against the wall, exhaustion pressing down on him, but a faint smile crossed his face. He was an orphan, a mercenary, a shadow in a galaxy that had no time for mercy. And yet even now he felt the faint pull of destiny, the strange tug of threads connecting his past to a future he had not yet seen. The night stretched on, silent except for the hum of distant ships. Kale closed his eyes, recalling the bridge, the girl, and the fear that had once been so sharp in his memory. He remembered her voice, soft and trembling, thanking him. He remembered the look in her eyes, a mixture of fear and trust that no child should ever have to feel. And he remembered the promise he had made to himself in that instant. He would survive. He would endure. He would become someone no one could ignore. And now the galaxy was beginning to notice. Somewhere in a palace he had never seen, Queen Alara received word. A mercenary had struck at the heart of a Krellith fortress, and when her aides whispered his name, she went silent. Her memory reached back years to a day she had almost died, saved by a small boy with nothing but courage and quick thinking. She remembered the eyes, the hands, the determination that had pulled her from the edge. And for a moment she wondered, could he still be that boy? Could the fate of her empire somehow be connected to a mercenary roaming the shadows of the galaxy? The stage was set. Paths long separated were beginning to converge. And Kale, unaware of the stir he had caused, prepared for the next step in a life that had always been survival, but was now becoming legend. The city breathed around him, indifferent to the struggles of one human, but Kale felt it all, the hum of engines, the whisper of wind, the distant echo of explosions. And in the stillness, he heard a faint reminder of why he had survived all these years. Humans did not give up. Humans did not surrender, and sometimes humans, just one human, could change everything. Kale checked his weapons, reloaded his pulse rifles, and allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. He had survived another night. He had done what few could do. And somewhere out there, a queen who once owed him her life might one day meet the man he had become. The stars beyond the ruined city shone cold and distant, but Kale felt their light like a promise. A promise that no matter how dark the galaxy grew, humans would endure. They would fight, they would survive, and he, Kale, would leave a mark no empire, human or alien, could erase. The morning sun barely touched the horizon when Kale emerged from the safe house. The streets of the outer colony were quiet, but Kale knew better than to trust silence. Danger never rested, especially for someone with a reputation like his. He moved carefully, blending into the shadows, though shadows seemed to follow him wherever he went. His mission from the previous night had been a success, but success often brought more danger than failure. The client had already contacted him. The voice on the encrypted channel was calm but urgent. "Kale," it said, "the weapon you tracked last night is only the beginning. The Krellith are not just after territory, they are preparing something larger, something dangerous. We need someone who can move where others cannot. Are you available?" Kale let the silence stretch before replying. "Available," he said simply. Words were wasted on explanations. Action was the only currency he understood. By mid-morning, Kale had boarded a small, nondescript ship, one that drew no attention from patrols or scanners. He studied the files from the previous mission again, reviewing the Krellith layouts and troop movements. The new mission was clear: retrieve an experimental weapon stolen from a human research facility and prevent it from being delivered to the alien coalition's front lines. Failure was not an option. The journey through space was tense. Kale's mind wandered back again to the memory of the girl he had saved years ago. Queen Alara. Rumors about her empire reached even the farthest human colonies. She was known as a leader who was both fair and ruthless, a combination that kept her enemies guessing and her allies in awe. Kale wondered if she had ever thought of him, of the boy who had risked everything to save her life. Perhaps she had, perhaps she had not. Memories like these were dangerous. They made a man hesitate when hesitation could be fatal. The ship's AI, a compact, human-made unit designed for stealth and speed, interrupted his thoughts. Approaching target sector in 10 minutes, enemy patrols detected near the drop zone. Probability of detection, moderate to high, Kale grunted. Moderate to high was never good enough. The drop zone was a remote moon orbiting a gas giant. Its surface was jagged and scarred, remnants of past conflicts etched into the rock. Kale's ship descended silently, navigating through the rocky terrain to avoid radar sweeps. The stolen weapon, a compact but powerful device capable of destabilizing planetary shields, had to be recovered before the aliens could transport it. One misstep and the consequences would ripple across human colonies. Kale stepped onto the cold, jagged ground. The wind was fierce, carrying with it the scent of sulfur and ice. He checked his weapons, ensuring the pulse rifles were charged and the grenades secured. He had survived countless missions, but each one reminded him of how fragile life could be. One moment he could be planning the next move, the next he could be debris on a rock in space. The patrols were heavy. Krellith soldiers, armored and precise, moved in coordinated formations. Kale observed from a ridge, calculating their patterns. He noted weak points, gaps in their rotations, and exits they would likely overlook. Patience had saved him more times than any weapon. Kale waited hidden in the shadow of a jagged outcrop. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, an opening presented itself. He dropped silently into the patrol's blind spot, his movements fluid and precise. The first guard never saw him. A quick strike and he was down. Kale continued, moving through the shadows, taking down guards with silent efficiency. Each step brought him closer to the stolen weapon, and each step reminded him why humans survived where others failed. Ingenuity, adaptability, and courage in moments when hesitation could mean death. He reached the storage facility where the weapon was held. It was protected by energy shields and a series of biometric locks designed to prevent unauthorized access. Kale smiled faintly. No alien system could anticipate human creativity. He deployed a small device that interfaced with the shield, bypassing the security protocols with a mix of hacking skill and improvisation. The shield shimmered and then went dark. He entered the facility. The weapon was smaller than he expected, a compact device with glowing cores that pulsed faintly in rhythm with the surrounding energy field. Kale secured it in a reinforced case. The mission was not complete. Extraction had always been the hardest part. Moving the device without triggering alarms required more than skill. It required timing, nerves of steel, and a willingness to adapt instantly. The moment he stepped outside, alarms blared. The Krellith had detected the interference. Kale's heart did not race. He had anticipated this. The extraction route was not the same as the infiltration route. He sprinted toward a series of tunnels carved into the rock, the sound of pursuit echoing behind him. Plasma bolts streaked past, carving arcs of light into the ground. Kale moved like a shadow, weaving through cover, using the terrain to his advantage. Suddenly, a squad appeared, blocking his path. Kale assessed quickly. They were fast, coordinated, and well-armed. He could have engaged in a direct fight, but he knew better. He activated a series of small explosive charges he had placed earlier along the ridge. The explosion created chaos, scattering the squad and providing the cover he needed. As he moved through the tunnels, he felt the familiar adrenaline surge that came with close encounters. Each heartbeat was measured, each breath controlled. Humans were fragile, but Kale knew that the mind and instinct could overcome physical limitations. He had seen it time and time again, humans surviving against enemies who outgunned, outnumbered, and outclassed them. And that was the essence of being human: resilience, adaptability, and the ability to think beyond the obvious. By nightfall, Kale had successfully evaded the pursuing forces and reached a hidden shuttle waiting on the far side of the moon. The shuttle's engines hummed softly as he loaded the weapon aboard. The device was safe, and for now he was untouchable. But Kale knew that news traveled faster than a human could move. The Krellith would not forget this. Others would hear of the mercenary who had slipped past their patrols and stolen a weapon from under their noses. Later, aboard his ship, Kale reviewed the files from the mission: coordinates, patrol schedules, and new intelligence about the Krellith movements. Each piece of information was a tool, a weapon, and an opportunity. He realized that his reputation was beginning to precede him. In the human colonies, whispers of his exploits had already begun. But Kale was not concerned with fame. He was concerned with survival, with the next mission, with the next step in a life that had always demanded more than ordinary skill. And somewhere, far away in a palace filled with marble and technology, Queen Alara received a report. A human mercenary had struck at the heart of the Krellith defenses, retrieving a device of immense strategic importance. When her aides mentioned the name, Kale, she froze. Silence fell over the room. She remembered the boy who had saved her life years ago. The memory was sharp, vivid, impossible to ignore. Her advisors noticed her unusual reaction but dared not ask questions. Alara's mind raced, recalling the day, the fear, the hands that had pulled her to safety. Could this be the same human? Could fate have connected her past and her present in this way? Kale, unaware of the stir he had caused, prepared for the next mission. He spent the hours studying maps, reviewing patrol routines, and anticipating obstacles. His focus was absolute. The galaxy did not wait for sentiment, and neither did he. Yet, in the quiet moments, he felt the faint pull of destiny, the sense that his past and future were linked to someone far more powerful than any mercenary client, someone whose life he had once saved. Days passed as Kale moved from system to system, each mission more dangerous than the last. The stolen weapon was delivered safely to human intelligence agents, but the Krellith were relentless. They tracked, adapted, and attacked with precision. Kale countered with improvisation, unpredictability, and sheer human resilience. Each encounter reinforced what he had always known. Humans survived where others failed because of creativity, determination, and the courage to act when others hesitated. During one mission, Kale faced an alien squad far larger than his previous encounters. Outgunned and surrounded, he did not panic. He used terrain, shadows, and rapid maneuvers to outwit the aliens. Each move was calculated, precise, and dangerous. By the end of the engagement, Kale had neutralized the threat without losing the valuable asset he carried. The humans he worked with began to whisper, even among themselves, that Kale was more than a mercenary. He was a force of nature, unpredictable, unstoppable, and uniquely human. As the weeks passed, Kale's reputation grew. Stories of his cunning, courage, and unorthodox methods spread across colonies and stations. And everywhere he went, the sense of fate lingered, the feeling that sooner or later his path would cross with Queen Alara again. Somewhere in the web of intelligence networks and whispers of spies, his name traveled. And somewhere in the vast palace of the Queen, the memory of a boy who had once saved a life waited to meet the man who had become legend. Kale never sought recognition. Fame was dangerous, attention could be deadly, but he did recognize the patterns of destiny. He understood that his choices, his actions, and his survival were not just about him. They were threads in a larger tapestry, one that might someday connect him to the girl who had grown into a queen, whose empire could benefit from his deeds without ever knowing it. And as he prepared for yet another mission, Kale allowed himself a moment of reflection. Humans survived not because of technology or strength alone. They survived because of courage, ingenuity, and the ability to act when others froze. And Kale, orphaned and hardened by life, embodied those traits better than anyone. Somewhere out there, a queen who once owed him her life might soon discover that fact. The stars stretched infinitely beyond his ship, cold and distant, yet filled with possibilities. Kale knew that his journey was far from over. The galaxy was dangerous, vast, and unpredictable. But as long as he moved, adapted, and acted with purpose, humans would endure. And one day he would meet Queen Alara again, not as a boy and girl, but as a man and a ruler, a human mercenary whose courage had never wavered. For now, Kale focused on survival, on the next mission, and on the quiet thrill of knowing that humans, no matter how small, could achieve greatness in a galaxy that often overlooked them. The capital city of Queen Alara's empire stretched across the horizon like a jewel of human ambition gleaming under the twin suns. Towering spires of steel and glass reflected light in a dazzling array, and sky lanes hummed with ships moving in orderly precision. For Kale, seeing such a city was both awe-inspiring and threatening. He had faced countless dangers in the outer colonies, but entering the heart of a thriving empire was different. Here, one wrong move could end his life instantly. Kale had spent days planning this mission. The stolen intelligence from the Krellith had revealed a new threat, an experimental weapon designed to disrupt planetary shields. If it reached the hands of the alien coalition, entire human colonies could be devastated. His task was clear: intercept and neutralize the weapon before it could be deployed. But more than that, Kale knew that this mission might finally bring him face to face with the queen whose life he had once saved, a connection that had been dormant for years but was now closer than ever. The streets of the capital were crowded, even in the early hours. Citizens moved quickly, guided by security drones and city patrols. Kale moved among them, a shadow within the crowd. His appearance had been altered with subtle disguises, his weapons concealed. Humans were adaptable, he knew, but so were the aliens, and so were the Queen's elite forces. He had to act quickly, decisively, and intelligently. Kale's route took him beneath the city in a network of maintenance tunnels. The tunnels were narrow, dark, and quiet, perfect for avoiding detection. The intel suggested that the weapon was being stored temporarily in a secure facility near the upper city, under heavy surveillance. Kale checked his pulse rifles and grenades, his breathing steady. Every mission had its dangers, but this one carried more weight than most. Failure was no longer just about survival. It could cost thousands of human lives. He approached the facility's perimeter, a massive dome reinforced with energy shields and biometric locks. Kale crouched behind a stack of crates, observing patrol rotations. Timing, as always, was crucial. He activated a small device that emitted a frequency to confuse the shield's sensors. The shield shimmered, flickered, and then briefly went down. He moved through the opening like a ghost, his boots silent on the polished surface. Inside, the facility was cold and sterile. Security cameras tracked movement with mechanical precision, but Kale's experience with human ingenuity allowed him to bypass them. He navigated the corridors, avoiding guards and drones until he reached the storage chamber. There it was, the weapon, compact yet potent, glowing faintly in the low light. Kale's hands were steady as he secured it in a reinforced case. Suddenly, alarms blared. His movements had triggered a silent failsafe. Red lights flashed, casting eerie shadows along the walls. Kale's mind raced. Extraction routes had been compromised. Patrols would converge within minutes. He had to think fast. As he moved toward an emergency exit, he sensed movement in the chamber. Two figures had entered, a squad of elite royal guards. Kale didn't hesitate. He used shadows, cover, and precise strikes, incapacitating them one by one. But he sensed it before he could see it, a presence different from the others, commanding and authoritative. He turned, and there she was. Queen Alara, standing tall, clad in the ceremonial armor of her office, her gaze sharp and unyielding. For a moment, Kale froze, not from fear, but from recognition. She looked different than he remembered, older, stronger, yet the same eyes stared back at him, the eyes of the girl he had saved years ago. She went silent, and the guards hesitated. Her sharp intake of breath was unmistakable. Recognition had struck her like lightning. "Kale," she said, her voice low but firm. "It cannot be you." Kale studied her carefully. This was not a girl anymore. This was a queen commanding an empire, a ruler whose decisions affected millions, and yet he felt a strange warmth at the recognition in her eyes. I go by Kale, he replied calmly, though his heart raced. I've come for the weapon. Alara's eyes narrowed. She was bound by duty by protocol, but memory lingered beneath her composure. She had trusted this boy once, and the memory refused to fade. You are in violation of my city. Surrender the weapon, she commanded. Her guards tensed, but Kale did not flinch. Humans were unpredictable, and Kale used that unpredictability now. He lunged, rolling behind a pillar as plasma blasts cut through the chamber. Alara's guards reacted instantly, forming a protective formation around her. But Kale was faster, slipping between them, weaving unpredictably, using human ingenuity and instinct. Each move caught the guards off balance, forcing them to react, not act. Alara watched, astonished, as Kale maneuvered with the skill of someone who had survived a lifetime on the edge. Her memories returned, the boy, fearless and determined, who had acted when no one else would. Could this human, a mere mortal, be trusted to act correctly now? Her instincts battled with her duty. The confrontation escalated as alarms intensified. Kale knew he couldn't defeat her entire force. He needed a plan, not a fight. He calculated rapidly, energy flows, guard rotations, structural weaknesses. Humans survived by improvising, by seeing what others could not. Using a series of small grenades and careful movements, he created distractions, isolating the weapon from the guards. He moved toward the exit, the weapon secured, while Alara's eyes followed his every step. Then something unexpected happened. One of the younger guards, seeing Kale's efficiency and courage, hesitated. Kale caught the pause, made eye contact, and spoke in a low tone, "You don't have to fight me." The guard froze, caught between loyalty and the realization that humans could act beyond expected limits. He let Kale pass. Alara noticed and frowned. She had underestimated the human element, the moral choice that made humans unpredictable. Kale reached a secondary exit, only meters from freedom. Alara stepped in front of him. For a moment, time seemed suspended. The years collapsed between them, and the girl from the bridge was there again, mixed with the queen standing before him. "Kale," she said softly, more to herself than to him, "why are you here?" "I'm here to stop them," Kale replied simply. "The weapon cannot fall into their hands. It's bigger than you, bigger than me, bigger than anyone." His words were steady, confident. He spoke like someone who had survived the worst the galaxy could throw at him and understood the stakes. Alara studied him, her mind racing. Protocol demanded he be arrested, detained, or eliminated. Yet something in her memory whispered otherwise, the boy who had acted selflessly, the courage, the determination, the human spirit that refused to yield. She hesitated, breaking protocol for the first time in years. The sound of approaching reinforcements forced her decision. "Take the weapon," she said finally, her voice low and commanding. "Get it out of the city. I will deal with the aftermath." Kale's eyes widened in surprise, but he nodded, understanding the rare trust placed in him. They moved swiftly through the corridors together, though not side by side. Kale led the way, Alara covering the rear, her guards hesitant but obedient. As they reached the city's lower levels, Kale marveled at the precision and order of the capital. Yet he knew that even the most perfect system could be disrupted by human unpredictability, and that unpredictability had just earned him the Queen's cautious trust. Outside, a ship awaited, cloaked in stealth. Kale loaded the weapon aboard, checking all systems. Alara watched from the ground, her gaze fixed on him. For the first time in years, she saw not a boy or a mercenary, but a human capable of shaping fate through courage, intelligence, and determination. "Why did you trust me?" Kale asked quietly as the ship lifted off, leaving the city behind. Alara did not answer immediately. Her eyes lingered on him, memories mingling with the present. "Because I remember," she said finally, "what you did for me once, and sometimes humans act when no one else can. You are human, Kale, that is why I trust you." Kale nodded, feeling the weight of her words. Humans were fragile, yes, but in moments of crisis, their ingenuity, morality, and unpredictability gave them power no machine, no army, no alien race could anticipate. It was not strength alone that made them formidable, it was choice, courage, heart. The ship accelerated into the void, leaving the capital behind. Kale's thoughts drifted briefly back to the girl who had been a child and now stood as a queen. Their paths had converged unexpectedly, and their past connection had shaped the present in ways neither of them fully understood. But Kale knew this. Humans endured, humans adapted, and humans acted when others froze. That truth had saved Queen Alara once, and it had saved countless lives tonight. Even as the city faded from view, Kale's mind raced ahead. The Krellith would not forget. Others would come seeking the weapon, testing him, challenging him, and threatening the fragile balance of human colonies. But Kale was ready. Humans survived by thinking, by adapting, by refusing to surrender. And Kale, orphaned and hardened by a lifetime of survival, was the embodiment of that human spirit. Alara's voice broke his thoughts over the comm system. Kale, you are more than I imagined, but be careful. Your actions have consequences beyond your understanding. I know, Kale replied, eyes fixed on the stars. But humans always find a way. The stars stretched infinitely around them, cold and distant, yet filled with possibility. Kale held the weapon securely, feeling the weight of responsibility and the thrill of survival. Somewhere in the galaxy, the threads of past and future intertwined. And for the first time in years, Kale sensed that his life had purpose beyond mere survival. Queen Alara remained a silent observer for the remainder of the flight, her thoughts returning repeatedly to the boy she had once owed her life. Somewhere deep inside, she knew the galaxy had shifted in ways she could not yet see, guided by a human whose courage, intelligence, and unpredictability had once again changed the course of events. And Kale, unaware of how deeply his past had affected the Queen, prepared for the next stage of his mission, knowing that the galaxy would continue to test him, and that humans, no matter how small or seemingly powerless, would endure. Kale's ship cut through the darkness of space, the stars streaking past like distant fireflies. In his hands, the weapon from the Krellith mission glowed faintly, a reminder of the stakes they carried. Queen Alara's voice echoed softly through the comm system, her presence a steady anchor in the tension that surrounded them. The mission was far from over. The Krellith had regrouped, and intelligence suggested a massive attack on one of the outer human colonies was imminent. Kale and Alara would have to work together to prevent catastrophe. The journey to the colony was tense. Every navigation system, every radar sweep, indicated that the aliens were aware of their movements. Kale's instincts sharpened, honed by years of surviving impossible situations. Humans were small in the vast galaxy, but Kale had learned that intelligence, creativity, and courage often outweighed numbers and technology. It was a lesson he had lived his entire life. Alara remained silent most of the way, watching the stars and reviewing strategies. She had grown into her role as queen, commanding fleets and armies with precision. Yet in Kale, she saw something no training or protocol could teach, a human mind capable of thinking beyond patterns, beyond expectation. She remembered the boy who had saved her life, the courage that had defied danger, and she realized that the same spark lived within the man who now carried a weapon that could change the balance of power. As they approached the colony, scanners detected a fleet of Krellith warships moving in formation. The aliens had anticipated a human response and were prepared for battle. Kale studied the fleet, noting the formation and energy signatures. Conventional tactics would fail. A direct assault would be suicidal. He had to rely on ingenuity, on unpredictability, on the human quality that no alien could fully anticipate. Kale, Alara said quietly, the colony's defenses are strong, but they cannot hold against that fleet alone. We need a plan that uses both human and alien intelligence. Kale nodded, his mind racing. He considered the environment, the planet's magnetic fields, the layout of the colony, and the weaknesses in the enemy formation. Humans survived by seeing what others could not. By combining the Queen's knowledge of the colony's defenses with his improvisation skills, they could create an advantage. The plan was simple in principle but dangerous in execution. Kale would infiltrate the leading Krellith ship using a stealth pod, disabling its communication systems and creating chaos among the fleet. Alara would coordinate planetary defenses and mobilize human ships to exploit the confusion. Timing, precision, and courage would determine success. Kale entered the stealth pod, feeling the familiar surge of adrenaline. The pod moved like a shadow through the void, undetected by the enemy fleet. He recalled the lessons of his past missions: patience, observation, and rapid action. Humans endured because they adapted, and Kale intended to prove that once again. He reached the Krellith command ship undetected. The interior was cold and sterile, filled with advanced technology that was impressive but rigid. Kale knew the key to survival: move unpredictably, exploit flaws in logic, and act decisively. Using a combination of hacking skills and small, precise explosives, he disabled the ship's communications and navigation systems. Confusion rippled through the fleet instantly, the aliens unable to anticipate the human tactics. Back on the colony, Alara observed the disruption. Her eyes widened with realization as human forces seized the moment. Fighters launched, planetary defenses activated, and the alien fleet faltered under the unexpected chaos. Alara's trust in Kale had been well placed. Human ingenuity was turning the tide of battle. Kale moved through the ship, neutralizing small squads of guards while avoiding detection. Each step required careful calculation, blending speed, precision, and unpredictability. He felt the familiar rhythm of danger, the heartbeat of the galaxy, and he thrived within it. Humans survived because they did not wait for safety. They acted, decisively and without hesitation. Finally, Kale reached the core of the ship where the Krellith had stored a secondary device that could amplify the weapon's destructive potential. He secured it and planted small charges, timing them to disable the ship without destroying it completely. The ship would be rendered useless, its technology captured, and the weapon neutralized. Kale activated the charges and raced toward the extraction point, dodging patrols and navigating corridors with practiced skill. Outside, human ships engaged the faltering Krellith fleet. Alara coordinated from the colony, her commands precise and confident. The combination of human adaptability, courage, and Kale's ingenuity overwhelmed the aliens. They were forced to retreat, unable to predict or counter the human tactics. Alara watched the battle unfold, her mind filled with admiration and a hint of awe. The boy she had once owed her life had become a man whose actions could determine the fate of colonies and empires alike. Kale's pod docked with Alara's ship. He emerged, carrying the weapon and the secondary device safely. Alara met him at the airlock, her eyes reflecting both relief and respect. "You've done more than I imagined," she said quietly. "The colony is safe because of you." Kale shrugged, a faint smile crossing his face. "Humans survive," he said simply. "We adapt. We act when others hesitate. That's what we do." Alara studied him for a long moment, remembering the boy who had once risked everything to save her. She realized that Kale embodied what it meant to be human, resilient, inventive, and courageous. His actions were not driven by duty or protocol alone, but by choice, morality, and the willingness to act when others could not. The immediate danger passed, but the galaxy remained unpredictable. Kale and Alara knew the Krellith would regroup, new threats would emerge, and humans would always face challenges beyond their strength. Yet the successful mission reinforced a truth that Kale had always known. Survival depended not on technology or power alone, but on human ingenuity and spirit. Back aboard the Queen's command ship, Kale handed over the weapon and the secondary device to Alara's security team. The devices would be studied, neutralized, and used to strengthen human defenses. For Kale, it was another job completed, another crisis averted. But he knew that his reputation was spreading, and that recognition, whether he wanted it or not, was inevitable. Alara approached him, her gaze steady. "Kale," she said, "you could have served the Empire officially, yet you remain a mercenary. Why?" Kale looked out at the stars, thinking. "I survive my way," he replied. "I act when needed and I adapt when challenged. I do not need a title. Humans endure because of courage, not rank, and I intend to keep proving that." Alara nodded slowly, understanding the truth in his words. She had spent years as a queen, relying on strategy, armies, and technology. Yet Kale's actions had reminded her of a fundamental principle. Humans, when driven by necessity and morality, were unpredictable forces capable of shaping events no one could anticipate. The stars outside stretched infinitely, each one a silent witness to the resilience of humanity. Kale leaned against the ship's railing, feeling the weight of responsibility and the satisfaction of having prevented disaster. Somewhere out there, countless lives had been saved because of human ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. For Alara, the experience was transformative. She realized that the boy she had once owed her life to was no longer a boy. He had become a man whose choices, skills, and human spirit had altered the course of events across colonies. Trust, memory, and human resilience had converged in ways neither could have predicted. The aftermath of the battle brought recognition. Whispers of Kale's actions reached human colonies far and wide. Not as a soldier, not as a hero in uniform, but as a human who had survived, adapted, and acted when the galaxy required courage. He had become a symbol of what humanity could achieve: intelligence, bravery, and the ability to change the outcome of events against overwhelming odds. Days later, Kale prepared for departure. He had completed the mission, neutralized the threat, and proved that humans could endure where others failed. Yet, he remained restless, knowing that the galaxy would always demand more. Alara approached him one last time before he left, her expression thoughtful. "You've done what few could," she said quietly. "But remember, Kale, humans endure because of choices, courage, morality. You have shown all of that and more." Kale nodded. "I know," he replied, "and humans will continue to endure, we always do." As he departed, Alara watched him go. In her heart, she carried gratitude and respect, and an unspoken promise. Humans, guided by ingenuity and courage, would never be underestimated. Kale had proven it once, and he would continue to prove it in the future. Alone in the void of space, Kale looked at the stars. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable, yet he felt a profound certainty. Humans survived because they adapted. They acted when others froze. They endured through courage, morality, and intelligence. And Kale, orphaned and hardened by life, embodied that enduring spirit. For Kale, the journey would continue. There would always be missions, challenges, and threats beyond human understanding. Yet the mission with Queen Alara had reaffirmed one truth: humanity could survive anything. And Kale, a mercenary shaped by loss, skill, and courage, would remain a testament to what humans could achieve when they refused to yield. The stars stretched endlessly, cold and distant, yet alive with possibility. Kale felt the thrill of survival, the weight of responsibility, and the quiet joy of knowing that humans, no matter how small or seemingly powerless, could change the course of events. Somewhere, Queen Alara would remember this. Somewhere, the galaxy would whisper of a human who survived, adapted, and triumphed. Kale smiled faintly, securing his weapons and setting a course for the next horizon. The galaxy was vast, but humans endured, and he would continue to prove it.